So in this video, I'm going to go over 5 tips on how you can increase your child's interest in reading. So my first tip is to consider the length of the book that you're reading to your child. Remember that the younger the child, the shorter their attention span. So ideally, you'll want to pick a book that's just maybe a few pages in length. My second tip is to consider the number of words on the page of the book. So you'll ideally want to pick a book that has fewer words on each page, but you want those words to directly correspond with the picture that is shown on the page. My third tip is to give your child a book at the same time so that way they can flip through it while you're reading to them. Ideally, it would be the same book that you're reading, but it doesn't have to be the case. Even if they're flipping through a different book while you're reading to them, it gets them used to the idea of how you're supposed to interact with a book by flipping through pages. And so my fourth tip is to actually pick a book that is a song. So let's say your child loves music and The Wheels on the Bus is one of their favorite songs. Well, that might be a great place to start because they're already familiar with the song itself. This time, when it's paired with the book, they'll get used to the idea of looking at pictures at the same time and flipping through the pages. And so that way, they're learning that the music that they love can come from books, not just the radio or a smart device. And so my last tip, and this is my biggest tip, is to pick an interactive book. Now, there's lots of different interactive books out there, but I'm going to highlight the ones that are going to get your child to be more participatory and interested in reading. So one of them is what's called a lift the flap book. That's essentially where a child opens a flap that's on each page itself, and so that way they can see something that's hidden within the storyline. Another example is picking one that has page extenders. So that's essentially the same concept as a lift the flap, except this time it makes the page taller or longer or wider. And so that way it gets the child's interest because they open in different ways or extend in different ways. Another option is a sensory book, or what's called like a touch and feel book. And so that way a child can maybe smell something, or perhaps they would be able to touch items that have different textures like soft fur or maybe a very scratchy surface. And so that can really stimulate their different senses, and that can get them much more interested in the book itself. Another option is to pick a book that has a mirror, and I really like this particular style of book because it teaches the child to bring their visual attention to the page itself. And the last type of interactive book that I'm going to highlight is one that produces sound. Now, there's many out there that produce sounds, but the one that I want to highlight here is one where the button that activates the sound is actually on the page and not along the side of the book. And that's key because if it's on the page itself, the child has to learn that they need to flip the page in order to find the next button that will produce the sound or song that they're interested in hearing. Whereas if it's on the side of the book, that can be kind of confusing to the child because they can just hit the buttons and they don't have to pair that with the words. They can just get that immediate gratification without even having to flip through the pages of the book. And so those are my 5 tips on how you can increase your child's interest in reading. Thanks for watching my video.